College is supposed to be one of the best times of your life. New friends, late nights, freedom for the first time. But sometimes, the places that feel the safest can hide the darkest moments. In this video, you're going to hear 4 terrifying true college horror stories. A roommate who watched in the darkness. Something stalking students deep in the woods. A frat party that turned into a nightmare. And a mysterious figure knocking in the middle of the night. These are 16 chilling moments that turned ordinary college nights into unforgettable horror. And trust me, some of these stories will make you think twice before ever answering a knock at your door after midnight. It was my first year of university. The day felt unreal, a strange mixture of excitement and quiet dread. I had just finished unpacking the last of my belongings into my dorm room. My parents had said their goodbyes and driven away, leaving me alone in a place that was supposed to become my home for the next year. The room suddenly felt much bigger without them. 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 closets, and only one of them was occupied, mine. My roommate hadn't arrived yet. I sat on my bed scrolling through my laptop, trying to distract myself from the silence. The hallway outside buzzed with voices, laughter, doors slamming, the sound of dozens of students moving in at once. Then, the door slowly creaked open. A skinny kid walked in carrying a single suitcase. He didn't smile. He didn't say hello. He just stepped inside quietly, like he was entering an empty room. I stood up and tried to break the awkward silence. "Hey, I'm Dan," I said, extending my hand for a handshake. The kid froze. He stared at my hand like he didn't understand what I was doing. For a few uncomfortable seconds, he just looked down at it, expressionless. Then he awkwardly laughed. "Oh, right." He slowly reached out and gave me the weakest handshake I had ever felt in my life, like grabbing a limp piece of paper, a dead fish handshake. He pulled his hand back immediately and stood there silently, waiting. I had to ask the obvious question. "So, what's your name?" The kid blinked a few times before answering. "Dale." That was it. No introduction, no nice to meet you, nothing. I tried to make small talk, where he was from, what he was studying, how his summer had been, but every response was painfully short. Yes, no, maybe. Sometimes he would let out a strange, nervous laugh that echoed awkwardly around the room. Within minutes, the conversation completely died. Soon, we were both sitting on our separate beds with our laptops open, pretending the other person didn't exist. The silence became suffocating. Right then, I already knew one thing for sure. Living with Dale was going to be a nightmare. At the time, I just thought he was painfully awkward, but I had no idea yet that this strange, quiet roommate of mine would soon turn into one of the most disturbing experiences of my entire college life. Later that evening, I decided to explore the campus for a while. I met a few other students from my floor, and thankfully they seemed pretty normal. Talking with them helped me forget about the painfully awkward situation waiting for me back in my dorm room. But when I returned later that night, I immediately felt that same strange tension again. Dale was sitting in the exact same position he had been in when I left. Same chair, same posture, same blank expression. His laptop screen cast a cold blue glow across his pale face. For a second, I wondered if he had even moved the entire time I was gone. "Hey, Dale, what's up?" I said casually. He didn't answer, not even a glance, just the faint sound of his fingers tapping slowly on the keyboard. I sighed quietly and dropped my backpack onto the floor. It was already around 9:30 p.m., and I didn't have anything else planned that night, so I shut off the lamp on my side of the room and climbed into bed. But sleep didn't come easily. The room was silent except for the faint tapping of Dale's keyboard. Tap, tap, tap. Hours passed. Every time I checked the clock on my phone, he was still sitting there, staring into his laptop screen like some kind of statue. Finally, around 3 in the morning, I heard the sound of his laptop closing. A moment later, the room fell completely silent. Exhaustion finally took over, and I drifted off to sleep, but not for long. Less than an hour later, something woke me up. I didn't know what it was at first, just a strange feeling, like someone was watching me. I slowly opened my eyes. The room looked different. The blinds were open now, letting cold moonlight spill into the dorm room. The pale light stretched across the floor, illuminating everything in a ghostly glow. And that's when I saw him. Dale was sitting on the edge of his bed, completely still, facing directly toward me, watching me. My heart skipped a beat. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I rubbed my eyes and sat up, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling creeping into my chest. "Dale, what the hell are you doing?" I asked. His voice came out as a whisper. "Sorry." Without another word, he slowly laid back down in his bed, facing the wall. The room fell silent again, but after that moment, I couldn't shake the disturbing feeling that something about Dale was very, very wrong. The next morning when I woke up, Dale was already gone. For the first time since he had arrived, the room actually felt normal, quiet, peaceful. I stretched, got dressed, and stepped outside into the hallway. It was Saturday, the first official weekend of the school year, which meant orientation events, campus tours, and crowds of excited freshmen everywhere. The campus was alive with energy. Students were laughing, taking pictures, and trying to meet new people. For a few hours, I almost forgot about my strange roommate. During one of the orientation tours, our group passed by the university gardens, a peaceful area filled with trees, flowers, and small walking paths. That's when I overheard 2 students walking ahead of me whispering, "Dude, what is that guy doing? Is he sitting in the dirt?" Curious, I looked toward the bushes they were pointing at, and my stomach immediately dropped. It was Dale. He was crouched behind a patch of bushes, sitting directly in the dirt like a child. But that wasn't the disturbing part. He was slowly rubbing his hand across the bark of a tree over and over again. His face was blank, completely emotionless, just staring at the tree while his fingers moved across the rough bark like he was studying it. The orientation leader didn't seem to notice him. Nobody said anything. Most people just walked by pretending it wasn't happening. I quietly told the 2 students that he was my roommate. They both looked at me with the same uncomfortable expression. "Damn, sorry man," one of them said. None of us were really sure if it was okay to laugh about it, but eventually we did. That awkward moment actually helped us start talking, and by the end of the tour, we had made plans to hang out later that night. When I returned to the dorm later that afternoon, I received some unexpected news. The university housing office had approved my request for a new roommate. Apparently, they had already found someone else for me in the same building. I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Finally, I wouldn't have to live with Dale anymore. That night, I left the dorm to meet up with the 2 guys from orientation. For the first time since moving in, I actually had a good night. We walked around campus, grabbed some food, and talked for hours. But when I returned to the dorm later that night, something immediately felt wrong. Dale was sitting in the desk chair, facing the door, as if he had been waiting for me. The moment I stepped inside, he looked up. "Oh, hey," I said awkwardly. "What's up?" "Nothing," he replied flatly. His eyes didn't leave my face. I sat down on my bed and opened my laptop. That's when I noticed something strange. My email inbox was open. Several emails had already been read, emails I was almost certain I hadn't opened yet. Then I checked my folders. Multiple files had been opened. My stomach tightened. There was only one other person who could have done that. I slowly looked up at Dale. "Did you go through my laptop while I was out?" I asked. Before I had even finished the sentence, he responded loudly, "No!" Too fast, too defensive. It was obvious. This creepy kid had been going through my personal computer while I was gone. But at that point, I was too tired to start a confrontation. I just wanted the night to be over. So I opened my closet to grab my pajamas. And that's when I noticed something else. My clothes had been moved. Drawers slightly open, shirts folded differently. Someone had definitely gone through my things. A cold feeling crept down my spine. Luckily, I knew one thing. By tomorrow, I would finally be out of this room and away from Dale. Or at least, that's what I thought. That night, I tried to ignore the unsettling feeling in my chest. I changed into my pajamas and climbed into bed, telling myself that it didn't matter anymore. By the next day, I would be moving into a different dorm room with a new roommate. Just one more night. That was all I had to get through. Eventually, the room went quiet. Dale was lying in his bed, and the faint glow of his laptop screen had finally disappeared. At some point during the night, I fell asleep. But suddenly, a strange sound woke me up. A zipper, slowly sliding open. For a second, I thought I was dreaming, but then I heard it again. Zip. My eyes snapped open. The room was dark, but the dim light from outside the window allowed me to see the floor. And there he was. Dale was kneeling on the ground, right next to my bag, going through it. My heart immediately started pounding. I reached over and switched on the lamp beside my bed. The sudden light filled the room. Dale froze like a deer caught in headlights. "What the hell are you doing?" I demanded. For a moment, he just stared at me. Then he quickly stood up and tried to act confused. "I think you took my toothbrush by mistake," he said. The excuse was ridiculous. It didn't even make sense. But strangely, it was the most coherent sentence I had heard him say since the day we met. Still, I knew he was lying. Something about him felt deeply wrong, and because of that, I decided not to push things any further. The next day, I moved into my new dorm room and met my new roommate. Thankfully, he seemed normal. His name was Eric. He wasn't extremely outgoing, but compared to Dale, he felt like the most socially normal person on Earth. That night, after a decent conversation, we both turned off the lights and went to sleep. Everything finally felt peaceful again. But for the third night in a row, I woke up in the middle of the night. At first, I didn't know why. Then I heard it, a small clicking sound. Click. Pause. Click. It was quiet, but it repeated every few seconds. Curious, I got out of bed and slowly walked toward the door. The sound was coming from the other side. The common area outside our room always had a small nightlight on, so when I leaned forward and looked through the peephole, I could see someone standing there, but only the top of their head was visible. They were looking down, and suddenly I realized something horrifying. The clicking sound was coming from the doorknob. Whoever was standing outside was trying to unlock the door. My blood ran cold. Without making a sound, I grabbed my phone and dialed campus police. They arrived in less than 5 minutes. Only after hearing their voices in the hallway did I finally open the door. And when I stepped outside, I wasn't surprised by what I saw. The officers had Dale in handcuffs. My former roommate had followed me to my new dorm and had been trying to break in. I explained everything to the officers, how he used to be my roommate, how he had gone through my belongings, and how I had moved rooms to get away from him. They took him away that night. I never saw Dale again. I don't know if he was suspended, expelled, or something worse. But even years later, every once in a while, I still wake up in the middle of the night, remembering the way he sat there in the moonlight, silently watching me. I attended Binghamton University for 2 years. During that time, I managed to build a pretty large group of friends. We were the kind of group that went out almost every weekend. Parties, late-night food runs, random adventures around campus. College life felt exciting and unpredictable. But one particular night in October still stands out in my memory, for all the wrong reasons. It was a Friday night, and surprisingly, our group didn't have any big plans. Most of our friends were busy with other things, so it ended up being just me and 2 of my closest friends. Instead of staying in the dorms, we decided to do something different. There was a place on campus called the Nature Preserve, a large wooded area with a lake hidden deep inside it. Most students didn't go there at night because it was far from the main campus and surrounded by thick forest. But we knew a secret spot. On the far side of the lake, there was a small clearing, a perfect place to build a fire without being seen by campus security. Every once in a while, students would sneak out there to smoke, drink, or just hang out away from everyone. And that night, that's exactly what we planned to do. We grabbed a backpack, filled it with a bunch of cheap beers, and made the long walk through the dark trails leading into the preserve. The deeper we walked into the woods, the quieter everything became. The sounds of campus slowly faded behind us. Soon it was just the 3 of us and the forest. When we finally reached the clearing by the lake, we gathered some fallen branches and started a small fire. The flames flickered and danced, casting long shadows across the trees around us. The night air was cold, but the fire kept us warm. We sat in a circle, drinking beer and talking about everything and nothing. At the time, we jokingly called these kinds of conversations bro chats, the kind of late-night talks where people say things they normally wouldn't say during the day. As the hours passed, the alcohol started to take effect. Our voices got louder, our jokes got funnier. Eventually, we were laughing so hard that one of my friends actually fell backwards and started rolling around in the dry leaves on the ground. But suddenly, my other friend stopped laughing. He raised his hand slightly. Shh. The sudden silence felt strange. All 3 of us froze. At first, I didn't hear anything. Then it came again. A faint sound somewhere deep in the woods. Crunch. Leaves. Someone or something was walking through the forest, and it sounded like it was getting closer. The sound came again. Crunch. Somewhere out in the darkness, leaves and small branches were being stepped on. All three of us sat perfectly still, staring out toward the tree line surrounding our little campsite. The fire crackled softly beside us, but beyond the circle of orange light, the forest was completely black. "Did you hear that?" one of my friends whispered. Before anyone could answer, we heard another branch snap in the distance. That was enough to make all of us nervous. Our first thought was campus police. It wasn't uncommon for them to occasionally patrol the preserve on weekends to catch students drinking or doing drugs in the woods. We were all under 21, so getting caught out there with alcohol would have been a huge problem. Quickly, we grabbed the empty bottles near our feet and tossed them into the lake to hide the evidence. The rest of the beers were shoved into the backpack. By that point, I was already a little drunk, which only made my imagination worse. Every shadow between the trees suddenly felt threatening. Every movement of the wind sounded like footsteps. The firelight made things even more unsettling. It lit up our small clearing, but it also exposed us to anyone walking through the woods. And the strange thing was, this area of the preserve was very far from campus. Almost nobody ever came this deep into the forest at night, which meant whoever we were hearing probably wasn't just passing by. For the next minute or two, the sounds stopped completely. The silence became unbearable. Then suddenly, crunch. But this time the sound came from a different direction. We slowly turned our heads toward the right side of the clearing. Another step, another rustle of leaves. It felt like whoever was out there was moving around us, walking in a wide circle, not coming closer, just circling. The three of us exchanged uneasy looks. At first, we tried to laugh it off, joking that we were living through our own version of the Blair Witch Project. But deep down, none of us were actually laughing anymore, because the sounds kept moving. Left side, then behind us, then somewhere off to the right again. Whoever or whatever was out there was definitely watching us. And then something happened that made all three of us jump out of our skin. A huge thud suddenly slammed into the center of our campsite. For a split second, none of us understood what had happened. Then we looked down. A large tree branch had just landed directly in the middle of our fire pit. Someone had thrown it. For a few seconds, none of us moved. We just stared at the large branch lying in the center of our campsite, partially resting on the burning firewood. Sparks floated into the night air. Someone had definitely thrown it, but from where and why? Before we could even react, one of my friends suddenly jumped to his feet and took off running into the darkness toward the trail that led back to campus. His reaction startled both of us. For a brief moment, my other friend and I just sat there, staring at each other, half laughing out of shock, half wondering if this was some kind of stupid prank. But then it happened again. Another object came flying out of the darkness. This time it wasn't aimed at the fire. It hit my friend directly in the face. The sound was sickening. Crack. A thick tree branch had slammed into his cheek, knocking him backward onto the ground. He screamed in pain and grabbed his face. That was all the proof I needed. This was not a joke. Someone out there was attacking us. I quickly grabbed the backpack with the remaining beers and pulled my injured friend to his feet. "Run!" I shouted. We both sprinted toward the narrow trail that cut through the woods. Behind us, the firelight quickly faded, swallowed by the darkness of the forest. The trail felt endless. Branches scratched against our arms as we pushed through the trees, running as fast as we could. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. Eventually, we reached the edge of the preserve, where a small road separated the woods from the dorm buildings. We finally stopped running, bending over and gasping for breath. For a moment, it seemed like we were safe, but then we heard something that made my stomach drop. Footsteps coming from the woods. slowly approaching the road. Whoever had been throwing those branches had followed us. Without saying a word, we both turned and started running again, this time straight toward our dorm building. Adrenaline was pumping through my body as we ran across the road and straight toward the dorm buildings. Neither of us looked back. The only thing on our minds was getting somewhere safe. By the time we reached our dorm floor, both of us were completely out of breath. My friend was still holding his face where the branch had hit him, wincing in pain. We rushed into our other friend's room, the one who had taken off running earlier. He was already there, sitting on his bed, still breathing heavily. "You guys saw that too, right?" he asked immediately. None of us answered at first. Instead, we all moved toward the window. From his room, we could see the edge of the nature preserve in the distance. The dark line of trees stretched along the road like a giant wall of shadows. We stared down at the woods. And then we saw someone. A figure had stepped out of the trees. Even from that distance, we could tell it was a person. They were pacing slowly along the edge of the forest, back and forth, back and forth. Each time a car drove past on the road, the person would suddenly step backward into the darkness of the woods, hiding behind the trees. Then, when the road was empty again, they would step out and continue pacing, watching, waiting. None of us said a word. The silence in the room felt heavier than anything that had happened in the woods. Eventually, after a few minutes, the figures stopped pacing. They stood still for a moment, then slowly turned and walked back into the forest. The darkness swallowed them completely. We never saw that person again. Trying to shake off the fear, we eventually sat down and continued drinking the beers we had brought back with us. Within 10 minutes, we were laughing about the whole thing, convincing ourselves it had just been some random crazy person messing with us. But the next morning, when the alcohol had worn off, the reality of what happened truly hit us. Someone had been stalking us in the woods, throwing branches at us, following us all the way to the road. After that night, none of us ever went back into the nature preserve after dark again. And to this day, I still wonder who or what was walking through those woods that night. This happened during the first week of school in my freshman year at the University of Iowa. At that point, everything about college still felt new and unfamiliar. New classes, new people, new routines. I was just starting to get comfortable with my roommate. He was a pretty outgoing guy and had one main goal for the semester: joining a fraternity. Rush Week was officially starting the following week, but the frat parties had already begun. On Thursday night, my roommate turned to me while we were sitting in the dorm and asked if I wanted to come with him to a frat party. He didn't want to go alone. According to him, showing up with someone else made it easier to meet people and made things less awkward. I personally had no interest in rushing a fraternity, but I wasn't about to turn down a college party either. After all, the University of Iowa had a reputation for being a party school. So I agreed to go. His plan was simple: one frat party on Thursday, then different ones on Friday and Saturday. That way he could meet people and figure out which frat he liked the most. The party we went to that Thursday night, however, wasn't exactly what either of us expected. Apparently, it was one of the lowest-ranked fraternities around campus. I'm pretty sure it wasn't even an official frat house, more like an underground one trying to recruit members. My roommate's reasoning for going there was simple. It was a backup option. If the better fraternities didn't offer him a bid, at least he would already know some guys here. Late that night, we drove to the address. The house was located far away from campus, in a much rougher part of downtown. When we pulled up to the corner, the place looked nothing like a fraternity house. Honestly, if it weren't for the loud music blasting from inside and the cars parked all along the street, you would never guess a party was happening there. The house itself looked old and worn down, peeling paint, dim lights in the windows. It felt less like a frat party and more like walking into a place we probably shouldn't have been. We walked up to the door and knocked. Within seconds, the door swung open. Standing there was a short, heavy guy wearing a stained white t-shirt and holding a red plastic cup. Dark sweat marks covered the areas under his arms and across his stomach. He looked us up and down slowly. Then he grinned. "Come on in," he said. The moment we stepped inside, the smell of cheap beer and sweat hit us like a wall, and something about the atmosphere immediately felt off.
The party itself was being held in a cramped living room that looked like it hadn't been cleaned in months. The lights were extremely dim, barely illuminating the room. Old furniture had been pushed against the walls to make space, but even then the room felt overcrowded. There were probably 50 guys packed inside. Sweat, cheap beer, and loud music filled the air. But something immediately stood out to me. There were almost no girls at the party. I think I counted 2, and both of them looked just as uncomfortable as I felt. Most of the guys there didn't look like your typical college frat members either. Instead of laughing and socializing, many of them stood around in small groups, quietly staring at people who walked through the room. The atmosphere felt strange, heavy, almost hostile. Still, I tried to give the party a fair chance. For the next 20 minutes, I forced myself to make small talk with a few people, most of whom seemed extremely awkward or antisocial. One guy spoke to me for nearly 5 minutes without ever making eye contact. Another one kept nervously laughing after everything he said. Eventually, I looked across the room and signaled to my roommate that I was ready to leave. But there was a problem. A large group of guys had gathered near the front door. They were standing in a tight circle, talking loudly, completely blocking the exit. Leaving at that moment would have been awkward, so we decided to wait a little longer. In the meantime, I kept drinking the cheap beer they were handing out. The taste was terrible, flat and warm. I think I had downed 5 plastic cups before I even felt the slightest buzz. That's when someone approached me. He was a heavy-set guy I hadn't seen earlier in the night. Without saying much, he held out his hand. In it was a tiny glass bottle filled with clear liquid. He smirked as he handed it to me. "That'll get you shit-faced," he said. I laughed awkwardly and thanked him, expecting him to walk away. But he didn't. He just stood there, watching me, waiting. The way he stared made me uncomfortable. It was obvious he expected me to drink it. Not wanting to make things weird, I shrugged and opened the bottle. It was probably 2 shots worth of hard liquor. I tilted my head back and drank it. The liquid burned all the way down my throat. The guy smiled wider. Then he started talking to me. The conversation was awkward and mostly one-sided. Every time I tried to end it or move away, he would ask another question or step closer.
Something about him made my skin crawl. And then suddenly, everything started to feel strange. The room began to spin slightly. The music sounded distant, like it was playing from another room. My vision blurred. The lights seemed to grow darker. And the last thing I remember before everything went black was that guy still staring at me, smiling. When I opened my eyes, everything was dark. For a few seconds, I had no idea where I was. My head felt incredibly heavy, like my brain was wrapped in fog. My vision slowly started to focus as I blinked a few times, trying to understand my surroundings. I was lying on a bed. The room was almost completely dark, except for a faint sliver of light coming from underneath a closed door. Through that door, I could hear muffled music, loud bass, distant voices. That's when I realized something. I was still inside the frat house. Panic slowly began creeping into my chest. I forced myself to sit up. My head spun violently as I did, and I had to grab the edge of the mattress to steady myself. The room was small and unfamiliar. Even in the darkness, I could make out a few shapes: a dresser, a chair in the corner, and a small closet door on the opposite wall. My mind was racing. How long had I been out? What happened after I blacked out? Then I heard something. A sound coming from the closet. A faint crunching noise, like someone had accidentally stepped on a plastic bag. I froze. The music downstairs was loud, but the sound inside the room was clear enough to make my heart start pounding. Someone else was in the room, inside the closet. The crunching sound happened again, very soft, very slow, like someone shifting their weight. Every instinct in my body screamed that something was terribly wrong. Without thinking, I jumped off the bed and ran for the door. I yanked it open and sprinted down the hallway. The loud music immediately flooded my ears again as I rushed down the stairs into the crowded living room. My eyes scanned the room wildly. Finally, I spotted my roommate. I grabbed him by the arm. "We're leaving," I said urgently. He looked confused, but followed me as I pushed through the crowd and out the front door, past a group of guys standing in a circle near the entrance. The cold night air hit my face the moment we stepped outside, and that's when I realized just how scared I actually was.
We got into the car as fast as possible. The moment the doors slammed shut, my roommate started the engine and pulled away from the house. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The music from the party faded behind us as we drove back toward campus. My head still felt foggy, and my heart was pounding like I had just escaped something terrible. Finally, my roommate glanced over at me. "What happened?" he asked. I swallowed hard before answering. "I think I was drugged." His eyes widened immediately. "What?" I told him everything I could remember. The guy with the small bottle, the strange drink, the way the room started spinning, then waking up alone in that dark bedroom, and the sound coming from the closet. My roommate looked genuinely disturbed. "Dude, we should call the cops," he said, but I quickly shook my head. "No, it wouldn't make sense," I replied. I didn't have any real proof, and honestly, I just wanted to get back to campus and forget the entire night ever happened. For a few minutes, we drove in silence. Then my roommate asked a question that made the atmosphere even more uncomfortable. "Do you think someone did something to you?" I knew what he meant. Was I taken advantage of while I was unconscious? The thought sent a chill down my spine. But after checking myself, I didn't feel any pain or signs that anything like that had happened. My clothes were still the same as before.
so I assumed nothing had happened. Still, the entire situation felt terrifying. Then I checked the time on my phone, and that's when something strange stood out. I had only been unconscious for about 10 minutes. 10 minutes! That meant whatever that guy had given me either didn't work properly or something interrupted whatever they were planning. Either way, I felt incredibly lucky. That night ended up being the first and last time I ever went to an underground frat party. Even now, years later, I sometimes think back to that dark room, the quiet closet, and the sound of something moving inside it. Sometimes I still wonder, if I hadn't woken up when I did, what might have happened next.
During my sophomore year of college, I was lucky enough to get a single dorm room for my first semester. Unlike most of the other rooms on my floor, mine was located in a small corner section of the building. To even see my door, you had to walk down the main hallway and then turn a short corner into a narrow, private corridor. There were no other rooms in that small hallway, just mine. At first, I thought it was perfect. I could still hang out with my friends on the floor whenever I wanted, but when it was time to study or sleep, I had complete privacy. And for the first few weeks, everything was normal, peaceful, quiet. But one night, while I was studying for a biology exam, something strange happened. The entire floor was unusually silent. Most people had already gone to bed. I was sitting on my bed with my laptop and textbooks spread out around me when I heard a faint sound. Tap. At first, I wasn't even sure I heard it. A few seconds later, it came again. Tap. Tap. It was coming from the door. The knocking was incredibly light, so soft that I almost thought it might have been part of my imagination. Without getting up, I called out casually, "Come in!" But the door didn't open. I waited a few seconds. Nothing. Confused, I stood up and walked over to the door. When I opened it, no one was there. The narrow corridor outside my room was completely empty. I stepped out and quickly walked the few feet to the corner, looking down the main hallway. No one, no footsteps, no doors closing, nothing. Someone had clearly knocked, but whoever it was had disappeared almost instantly. At the time, I assumed it was just someone from my floor playing a stupid prank, so I shrugged it off and went back to studying. This time, I left the door slightly open, but no one came back. At least, not that night. The next night, I tried not to think about the strange knocking from the night before. College dorms were full of people pulling stupid pranks, so I convinced myself that someone had probably knocked and then quickly run away. Still, something about it had felt off. That night, I finished studying a little after midnight. I turned off the lamp beside my bed and lay down, expecting to fall asleep quickly. For a while, everything was completely silent. Then, suddenly, knock, knock, knock. My eyes flew open. This time, it wasn't a soft tap. It was much louder. A clear, deliberate knock on the door. I sat up in bed and stared at the dark outline of the door across the room. "Who is it?" I called out. The knocking immediately stopped. No answer. The silence that followed felt heavier than the knock itself. I got out of bed and walked quickly to the door. My heart was beating a little faster now. When I pulled the door open, the narrow corridor was empty again, just like the night before. I stepped out into the hallway and looked toward the corner that led to the main part of the dorm's floor. No one, not a single person. The floor was completely quiet. Now I was starting to get annoyed. Someone was clearly messing with me. I walked back into my room, shut the door, and locked it this time. The next morning, I asked several people on my floor if anyone had been knocking on my door late at night. Everyone denied it, and they all seemed sincere. Nobody laughed. Nobody admitted to anything, which made the situation even stranger. The next night, things got worse. Around 3 hours after I had fallen asleep, a sudden loud knocking shook me awake. Bang, bang, bang. The sound echoed through my room. This wasn't playful knocking anymore. It sounded aggressive, demanding. For a few seconds, I just sat there in bed trying to decide whether or not I should open the door. Finally, with a burst of courage, I jumped up and walked toward it. My hand hesitated on the knob. Then I pulled the door open, and once again, the hallway was empty. But this time, something felt different. Something told me the person who had knocked was very close.
For a moment, I just stood there in the doorway, staring down the narrow corridor outside my room. The silence was unnerving. But this time, instead of going back inside like the other nights, I decided I was going to catch whoever was doing this. I stepped out into the corridor and moved quickly toward the corner that connected to the main hallway. My footsteps echoed softly on the floor. As soon as I turned the corner, I saw someone. Just for a split second, a person's back disappearing around the far corner at the opposite end of the hallway. "Hey!" I shouted. They didn't stop. Adrenaline kicked in, and I immediately started running down the hallway after them. My heart pounded in my chest as I reached the next corner. When I turned it, I saw something strange. A door at the end of the hallway was slowly closing. It wasn't a dorm room. It was the floor's shared bathroom. I hurried toward it, determined to finally confront whoever had been messing with me for the past 3 nights. Without hesitating, I pushed the bathroom door open with force. The lights inside were off. The entire room was dark. My breathing sounded loud in the silence. I quickly reached for the switch and flipped on the light. The fluorescent lights flickered before fully turning on. The bathroom looked completely empty. No one at the sinks, no one by the mirrors. For a second, I thought I had somehow imagined the whole thing. Then I noticed something. Both of the bathroom stall doors were closed. A wave of confidence came over me. Got you. Slowly, I walked closer. Instead of opening them right away, I crouched down and looked underneath the stalls first. And that's when I saw them. A pair of heavy black boots standing on the floor inside one of the stalls. Someone was definitely in there. I stood up slowly, took a deep breath, and grabbed the stall door. Then I pushed it open and immediately felt a chill run down my spine. The boots were there, sitting on the floor, but there was no one inside them. The stall was completely empty. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the boots on the floor. My brain struggled to process what I was seeing. The stall was completely empty. There was no one inside. No open window, no place where someone could have hidden. Just a pair of heavy black boots sitting perfectly still on the cold bathroom tiles. A cold wave of fear slowly crept up my spine. Then I heard it. A sound that instantly made every hair on my body stand up. A low, eerie, giggling noise. It echoed softly through the bathroom. The laugh didn't sound like a student. It didn't sound young. It wasn't playful either.
It sounded like the laugh of a very old man, weak, raspy, and slightly unhinged. The kind of laugh you might expect from someone who had completely lost their mind. My confidence disappeared instantly. The bravado I had felt just seconds ago was gone. Instead, I suddenly felt a deep, overwhelming sense of fear. Someone was in the bathroom with me, but I couldn't see them. The giggling stopped. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Without thinking twice, I turned and ran. I sprinted out of the bathroom, down the hallway, and back toward my room as fast as I could. When I reached my door, I slammed it shut behind me and locked it immediately. My hands were shaking. I jumped into my bed and grabbed my phone, texting every friend I had on the floor. But it was the middle of the night. Everyone was asleep. No one answered. I lay there in the darkness, staring at the door, listening, waiting. Then, a few minutes later, the knocking returned. Slow, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. My entire body froze. I didn't move. I didn't speak. The knocking continued for nearly 30 seconds. Then, suddenly, it stopped. Whoever had been outside my door finally gave up. The next morning, I asked everyone on my floor if they had heard anything the night before. No one had. Not the knocking, not the footsteps, nothing. And every single person swore they weren't playing a prank on me. They all seemed completely sincere. To this day, I still have no idea who or what was knocking on my door those nights. But judging by the boots I saw in that stall and the disturbing laugh I heard in the darkness, one thing still haunts me. Whoever or whatever it was, it definitely wasn't a student.